Samsung's Galaxy S7 launches, but was it worth the wait?
And what horrors lurk in the shadows with LG's new HDR OLED televisions?
Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Alex Kidman, and I'm here with a man who eats high-end televisions for breakfast despite his GP telling him not to, Adam Turner. We're also joined by Business Insider technology writer Harry Tucker. Harry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Adam, what's new in tech?
Artificial intelligence continues to beat humans at their own game, this time at iconic Chinese strategy board game Go. Google's DeepMind AlphaGo software has defeated world champion Lee Sedol in the first of a 5-game series in Seoul. The victory is considered by some to be more significant than when IBM's Deep Blue beat chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov in 1997.
An Android banking Trojan that targets the big Australian banks, as well as banks from New Zealand and Turkey, has been identified by ESET Security. It masquerades as a flash player before taking over your handset with a lock screen that matches your bank login, before stealing that data and presumably all of your cash as well.
Amaysim is the latest Australian telco to reduce the lifespan of its prepaid recharges from 30 days to 28 days, forcing customers to pay for one extra recharge to make it through a year. Telstra, Optus, Vodafone and Virgin Mobile also offer 28-day prepaid deals, while smaller providers such as Kogan, Woolworths, Aldi and Boost Mobile have stuck with 30-day recharges.
The ABC's finally launched an iView client for Apple TV. However, that's an iView client for the 4th generation Apple TV only. If you've got the older, smaller, cheaper model, your best bet is still to use AirPlay via an iOS device, with no sign of a dedicated app in development.
So Alex, you're a fan of prepaid deals. Is it a big deal that they're cutting recharges down from 30 days to 28 days?
Yeah, look, it is. It's not entirely a new thing. A lot of the current furor around it has related to the fact that Amaysim's changing all of its plans to 28 days. But in fact, for some time, both Optus and Telstra have had 28-day options. Now, to be fair, they've also had 30-day options, but they've weighted the 28-day options to be the premium ones that they want to try and push. And there's really kind of two aspects to this. There's the kind of obvious one, which is that you're getting 2 fewer days per recharge month, which means over a year, you do end up having to pay for an extra recharge. It'll typically just about bleed into the next year. It's not quite a 13-month year, but it's pretty darn close. That's one side of it. The other thing, though, is it actually makes the comparison harder. Because a lot of the smaller telcos have kind of jumped on this and said, oh, well, we've still got 30 days and we're wonderful. I mean, Kogan, most notably, who never met a marketing angle they didn't like, have gone this way. And the problem there is that it's not a straight like-for-like comparison, because you've got to look at everything else that's offered, and especially at the network quality. So for Kogan and for some other virtual operators, not all of them, they're sitting on a Vodafone 3G signal. Now, you compare that against an Optus 4G or a Telstra 4G, well, yeah, they're not quite the same thing. So a 28-day plan might actually still, even though they're worse value than they used to be, might be better value than some of the 30-day ones, but it's much harder to tell. That's the other bigger problem with all of these. Harry, what do you reckon to all this change?
Look, I think it's quite deceiving to the customers, and I think it's about time that it's sort of been brought to light. While I understand why it's done and agree with you what you're saying in terms of what's happening with the network value compared to using Telstra's 4G network compared to Vodafone's 3G network, which is still quite questionable. I do believe that it should be made a lot clearer to customers, especially with, as you mentioned, some of those bigger telcos like Optus and Telstra offering them. Like, it's very much under the view that it's a full month that you're getting with your prepaid.
They forced the telcos. I was going to say they forced the telcos to give you a better. They forced the telcos to give you a better explanation of what you get under a plan with these critical information statements. But it still seems to me that there's a lot of fidgy-widginess when it comes to prepaid, and this is a classic example of that. Is it much harder, you think, to know what you're getting under prepaid?
Well, I think the issue there is that the critical information summary only has to say the minimum that you'll pay, which is, of course, in this case, it's 28 days and it's whatever your recharge value is. Those kind of figures make more sense on a contract where they've got to say, the minimum under this 2-year contract is this much.
Yeah.
And of course, it can be much higher than that. With prepaid, it's slightly different. Again, I come back to that thing of it just makes the comparison that much harder. Some of these are not worse deals, some of them are worse deals, and it's very hard to pick between the two. You've actually got to do multiple sums and work out and know your usage pattern quite well.
So, Harry, you're not a prepaid guy, but you're on a month-to-month that's not on a plan. That seems to me like a better deal. I don't understand. If you're on monthly prepaid, wouldn't you generally find a better deal on some kind of plan?
Yes, that's what I found, especially because I'm now on Vodafone, which offers me
my
doing
condolences.
month to month. It's actually pretty good. And the big thing for me, though, is, as you guys are, I'm sure aware, we travel a lot in our industry. And Vodafone's $5 a day is just amazing. Like, no other telco is doing anything remotely close.
Oh, that's for roaming.
It totally comes
Sure.
down to knowing
Yeah.
your usage patterns. I mean, I am on prepaid, and I like being on prepaid because it's a set capped spend. If you go on month-to-month postpaid, then there's always that prospect of going over it without necessarily being aware of it. But agreed. I mean, the Vodafone deal is a really quite compelling one if you travel a lot. Again, it's knowing your usage, it's knowing your model. Prepaid still, I think, has some appeal for a lot of people, especially, of course, if you have your handset outright. Contract, of course, has that huge advantage of being able to bundle handsets in and give you a bit of a discount there.
I
own my. That's all right. No, I own my handsets now, so I still feel like even month to month, like it's the same. But I get heaps more data than I do on similar price prepaid plans. I think I signed up when there was a promo, and I've got like 12 gig of data or something for about $50 a month. You can't get anything remotely close to that on prepaid.
Right, so Alex and Harry, you've both got your hands on Samsung's Galaxy S7. It's their latest smartphone. What do we think?
Look, they only launched this thing a couple of weeks ago. They brought it to market exceptionally quickly on a huge wave of hype. And the hype was kind of, look, yeah, we kind of know that the S6 was not quite everything it should be, but this one's really good. And in that hype period, it can often be really hard to tell whether or not they are, in fact, really good in the way that they say they are. Having had some time to test it, I think I agree. I think this is a really good phone.
Oh, me too. For me, I think it's one of the best phones, if not the best phone I've probably ever used. It's just the most all-round smartphone that's come across my desk. And usually I sort of lean that way towards iPhones, because iPhones do everything well. But a lot of Android phones do like one or two things better than your iPhone, but then they've got a massive shortfall, like, really overblown, custom UI over the top of Android, or terrible battery life, or woeful camera, or whatever. But I feel like the Galaxy S7, Samsung has just nailed everything. You've got a camera that is best in class. You've got a battery life, which, with me, I use my phone pretty heavily, and I haven't had to charge it in, a little over the week that I've had it, during the day once. And then you've got things like a waterproof design. It's super quick. It's great. I love it.
I've also noticed and this is again not uncommon for a metal body phone, despite the fact that this thing's got water cooling in it, which kind of tickles my geeky nerve. It can get fairly warm.
Oh,
but
very hot.
Yeah. But having said that, yeah, I agree. This is it's an exceptional phone, and I actually find myself liking the S7 Edge even more. I suppose I'd probably want to, though. These are not cheap phones.
Water cooling in a phone, does it have like a Perspex back on it and neon lights so you can just watch the water going around like, some high-end gaming rig? Yeah, that's pretty full on.
So Adam and Harry, you've been playing with LG's new TV, which features high dynamic range. What do you reckon to it?
LG's OLEDs are easily, like Samsung and their Galaxy S7 phone is the best, LG's OLED TVs are the best. Simply because the OLED technology is just better than what any other competitor is offering. It's so much better than LCD and LED. The colors are much better. The blacks are so much deeper. The contrast, everything about it is just fantastic. And now with the added HDR function, which sort of, I guess, exaggerates the colors. Exaggerate's not a good word. What word would you use?
Well, for me, it's not so much the colors, although they talk about the colors. For me, it's more the detail in the shadows and the highlights. With HDR on, it's like HDR mode on a phone. You turn it on and suddenly you can have a bright light in the picture, yet you can still see people's faces and details. It's the bit the same. So if you're watching a horror movie and there's a full moon in the corner and then in the other corner there's a shadow with a werewolf in it, right? Most TVs would either do a good job of the full moon or a good job of showing you the werewolf, or an average job of both. But this actually does a really good job of both. It can keep one part of the screen nice and bright without blowing out and losing all that detail, but then keep the shadows nice and dark, yet still see all the detail as well. And I reckon that's more important actually than resolution. If you gave me a choice between HDR and Ultra HD, HDR being contrast and Ultra HD being resolution, I think HDR actually makes a bigger difference to your overall enjoyment of the picture.
Yeah, I agree there. I agree. With the WebOS navigation around on the TV, what do you think of that? I found it probably one of the easiest to navigate around, but it kind of felt like it's just a little bit slow.
Yeah, I don't mind WebOS. It's been through a couple of generations now. It's the old HP one that's been sort of reinvented several times. I like the idea of the cards that you can flick across, and it's fairly easy to get your head around what's going on in the screen. Some smart TV interfaces just try to be too busy and throw too much at you at once. I think it strikes a really good balance of helping you find your way around. As you say, it can feel a little bit sluggish at times, but that sort of is the price you pay if you want for something that's a bit more graphically user-friendly. It's definitely not the worst I've seen, let's put it that way.
No. But the thing for me with that is when I was using it, I kept thinking to myself that this is a $9,000 TV. And I'm experiencing lag just using the menu. I feel like with a $9,000 TV, no matter how good the picture is, you're sort of expecting there to be no real problems.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but the thing, see, this is a $9,000 TV, and when I reviewed it, all I wrote about was the picture quality. I didn't care if the TV was on fire and, smelled like a garbage tip and had whatever, I didn't care how ugly it was. All I cared about is the picture quality, and I kind of forget sometimes that for people they also have aesthetic concerns. Like it's really thin. I didn't bother to mention that, but it's actually a really thin television as well. But for me, it's the kind of TV where if you are the kind of person who buys a TV, sets it up, and doesn't even bother to adjust the contrast and brightness and just uses it out of the box, then this TV is totally overkill for you, right? Because you could get this TV out of the box if you don't bother to adjust it. You could buy a good LCD for half the price and get close to the same picture. But if you're the kind of person who waits till it gets dark and then adjust all the little advanced settings and the gamma and the white balance and all that kind of stuff to really get that perfect picture, this is the TV that you want. And the fact that it's flat and not curved, I think will sell a lot of them as well, because they've been trying to tell us that, curve is the new thing in TVs. And I don't know about you, but I haven't bought it. I don't believe that people want curved. And
no.
I think there's been a lot of pent up demand for this flat. And even at $9,000, if you've got deep pockets and an eye for detail, it's not a hard sell.
Yeah, and I think a good thing for this as well is that LG actually has stock in Australia, which, remember last year with their 4K OLED, there was about 3 in the country, and no one could get their hands on one, but they've actually got stock this year, which means you can actually go in and buy one. You've got the chance to be able to haggle a little bit the price at places like Harvey Norman. So I think they've got a very good proposition here this year.
Well, that just about wraps it up for another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Harry for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And remember, if you've got any comments, hit us up in the comment section on YouTube, via Twitter, or the Facebook Vertical Hold page.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, if you like what you hear, hit that subscribe button.